What's up? I posted up a video some time ago about leaving Stevens Transport, and at that time, I was getting started. I was going through orientation with my new company, didn't really know what my new company was like, and I didn't want to burn my bridges because there could be that chance of me having to go back and drive for Stevens again. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. Some things that I know now that I didn't know then, that I thought was normal, that ain't. I'm going to go ahead and burn my bridges with Stevens. I'm never going back to Stevens. I'm going to tell you all the fucked up things about that company and expose a lot more reasons why I left Stevens. And tell you the difference in Stevens and a good company, because I'm now in a good company that looks out for their drivers. Now there is a handful of staff in the office that tries to look out for us at Stevens, but still, the way the big machine works, they don't care. And something, I don't know if I talked about this in the previous video. Some of this I might not have talked about. I might have, but I'm going to go over it again just to make sure I cover everything. All the reasons why I quit. And I'm going to include all the fucked up shit. But I'm going to go ahead and start it off with something that isn't Stevens' fault, but it's more of the trucking community. And I now understand after being in a good company, why a lot of people, on asking what company I drive for, and I'd say Stevens, I now understand why a lot of people say, oh, man, I'm sorry. I mean, I felt like I was viewed as a Western Express or a Swift driver. But a lot of it is the trucking community is the reason why I quit. And after you gain, and as a new driver, it ain't so bad, because when you're struggling, people see the name on the door and come over to help you when they see you struggling. But after you gain some experience, and actually I stuck it out with Stevens for a long time. But over time, as you gain experience and you don't need that help as often, you know what you're doing, then you don't really see the positive side anymore of being in a starter company. Because, I mean, after you've driven for 2 years, you know how to back in more complex areas, or you know how to improvise whenever you can't you have no choice but to blindside back. You know how to work with that and deal with that, which it's a lot of it. But now in a starter company, regardless of your experience or your lack of experience, you're going to see the negative side of driving for a starter company. And I'd say that negative side is a contributing reason why I left. And the negative side is the trucking community. A lot of people, there's a lot of drivers that hate being passed by a carrier with that name on their door. And I want to tell you, this is the difference between Stevens how I'm viewed by other people in the trucking community compared to Stevens. My truck was set at 66 at Stevens. My last truck was set at 66. Same thing with the truck that was set at 64. A lot of times, if I'm maxing that truck out, and a lot of other drivers that were going slower, as soon as I grabbed the hammer lane to overtake them, they'd open it up on me and keep me from passing them. Or if I was able to pass them, I would be trapped in a turtle race to try to get around them. There is a lot of people that are butthurt about Stevens driver passing them. And my trainer dealt with that a lot, because my trainer, he was a contractor, and he bought his truck outside of the Stevens lease purchase program. He bought that truck from a dealership, and he's got it set at what he wants it set at, and it is not at 60 something miles an hour. It is fast. But there is a lot of people that'll be traveling below 65, and they'll open it up above 70 just to keep him from passing. Same thing with my truck that was set at 66. A lot of people was butthurt about it. But now, in my new company, I've started this company back in May. One thing I noticed right off the bat, this truck is slower than my Stevens truck. And if I overtake another driver, they don't give a shit. Hardly. There's only just a few people that are butthurt about me passing them in this truck. A lot of those same drivers who are butthurt about being passed by Stevens don't give a shit if I pass them or not in this truck. So that's one of the problems with Stevens and the treatment of other people from the trucking community. But now to tell you some other things that are messed up about the company. And I can't wrap my mind around this, but they are a mega carrier, one of the largest reefer companies in this nation, and they only have that one Dallas yard to tend to all the drivers. They don't have terminals throughout the country. Now they have some drop yards, but this is one of the reasons why I went with this company, is because they have a terminal in Lenoir City, and it's about between 30 to 45 minute drive. And yeah, I say the 15 minute difference, because depending on the time of day of driving through Knoxville, that's how long it'll take you to get from my house to the terminal. I have my Mustang stored at the terminal while I'm on the road. And when it comes time for my home time, I park my truck at the terminal, get in my car, and go home. It's that simple. But at Stevens, though, it ain't that simple. You have to go to a place that Stevens approves for you to park the truck. And where I park my truck at, it costs $20 a day. And when it came time for my home time, when I would park, I had to sit with heart-filled hopes that somebody is available to come and pick me up, or I can go ahead and go home. Sometimes I would have to sleep in the sleeper until the next morning, until someone was able to come and pick me up. Because, again, $20 a day to store a vehicle. I am not going to store my personal car at that tow yard for $20 a day. Now, when I quit, I got the phone call talking, we hate to see anybody quit, and we want to go talk about why you're quitting and everything, and see if we can resolve this before you quit. Now, when I brought up that issue, I told them that. They said, well, if you consider being a contractor, because if you're a contractor, you have a little bit more freedom on where you can store your truck at on your home time. Some people can even bring their trucks home. Never going to be able to bring a trailer home because they want to keep the trailers in circulation. That was one of the biggest issues that I dealt with at Stevens. My home time ain't as simple as going home. So, I mean, now if there's someone who lives in a town where Stevens utilizes a drop yard, that's very fortunate, very fortunate. If you're allowed to store your personal car at that, provided that you're allowed to store your personal car at that drop yard. But they have a few drop yards throughout the country, but for dealing with all the stuff, it's all on the Dallas yard. And how is a company with that kind of income, that kind of disposable income, how the fuck do they do everything off of one yard in Dallas when literally every company, and many of them not even mega carriers, have terminals throughout the nation, but Stevens don't? So that's my issues about Steve. One of the issues is they don't have terminals, just the 1 yard. Okay, now I'm going to one of my bigger issues. And I feel bad for whoever's taking over my truck after I quit, because they're going to go through the same bullshit that I went through until they quit or get fired. But the sensors on that truck are easily triggered. You get multiple critical events reported on it that don't need to be. There is something wrong with that truck. Now I'm going to tell you the difference in my current company dealing with a situation and Stevens dealing with a situation. When I first started with Crete, the guy who is over the terminal in Lenoir City, Richard, he gives a phone call every now and then for an evaluation. One of his concerns was my idle time. Now these trucks, they don't have APUs. We have what we call OptiIdle, and the idea with OptiIdle is to keep your idle time down to a minimum, which is understandable. Fuel consumption, pollution, You want to keep the idle time down as much as possible. And I have me a good routine going that keeps my idle time where it needs to be. So anytime I am stopped, the truck is off. I just tough out the heat and do all my stuff over my tablet, my loaded call, empty call, all that. the truck is off, and I just tough out the heat for just a couple of minutes and then crank the truck up and hit the road. Now, when it comes to my 10-hour breaks, the truck is off while I'm inside the truck stop with the keys in my pocket. That's a duh, but the truck is not idling whatsoever while I'm going to take my shower, buy my food, and all that. But now when I come out to the truck, I don't crank the truck. I turn the key over and set the OptiIdle up, and it'll automatically kick on within 5 minutes. I will run the air conditioning for about 15-20 minutes, long enough to cool the truck off, long enough for me to get comfortable, eat, watch a couple of episodes of a TV show or something. Then I turn the temperature up where the truck shouldn't be idling, and I go to sleep. So with that, it brings my idle time where it's supposed to be. But now, when I first started in this truck, because they taught me in orientation how to work with that, how to improve your idle time. I learned that in orientation. So, but I had a problem. This truck was idling a lot, even without running no heat, no AC. If I turn every device in this truck off, it's still idling a lot. And I told Richard, when it came to my idle time, I talked to Richard about it and told him about that. He told me he's never heard of that. And he said, but what I'm going to do, get with your driver manager about putting your truck in the shop, because we need to check out your parameters for idling and get that straightened out, because that is not right, and I've never heard of that, but it needs to be fixed. So I talked to my driver manager. As soon as I was empty, I landed in a terminal in Texas, in Wilmer, Texas. Brought it in the shop there. They actually fixed it. I don't know what they done, but after they done whatever they done, my idle time is where it's supposed to be. So good. It's good. I'm where I need to be, and that was the goal, was to get it to where it needed to be, regardless of anybody's thoughts, feelings, or opinions on what I said was wrong with the truck. They got it fixed. That's the important thing. That's a good company. But now I'll tell you some issues that I had with Stevens and how they dealt with it. Because I had a problem with there was a lot of unnecessary critical events being reported on my truck. And I've been through retraining. The safety department views me as dangerous and unsafe. But I'm going to tell you what it takes to trigger these critical events that was reported on my truck, and tell you when I told the people in the safety department what they said. I got a lane departure critical events going off all the time. And I'll go ahead and tell you this. I could bump the lane departure buzzer all day long and it will not report a critical event. But as soon as I turn my turn signal on and change lanes, it reports a lane departure event. That ain't correct. And another thing wrong with the sensors on the front bumper. Now, the way the sensor is supposed to work is if someone merges too close to you, as long as the space between you and the vehicle in front of you is increasing, you're showing some kind of effort of slowing down to keep from hitting them, as long as they maintain their pace and keep going, it's not going to report a critical event. It shouldn't report a critical event. But now, on my truck at Stevens, all it took to report a following distance event, all it took was someone merging within 1 second of me. And boom, it got the event. Not closing in on them. Even with slowing down, even if I hit the brakes and bring my speed dramatic down, deceleration, it'll still report the event. Now, in talking to different people in the safety department, I told them what was going on with it, because they were seeing these critical events, and I told them. They said, "Well, I never heard of that." Same thing Richard at my home terminals told me about my idle time. The difference between a good company and Stevens is that's bullshit. When your work zone, just turn off your lane departure warning, and you won't have that. But that ain't the issue. I can bump those buzzers all day long, and it won't report a critical event. Whether I'm in a work zone or on a wide road, I can bump it, and it will not report a critical event. But as soon as I throw on my turn signal and change lanes, lane departure event. They tell me, you need to slow down. You need to not tailgate people. I'm not. It's the malfunctioning system. I've never heard of that. Now, you're full of shit. You just need to slow down. You just need to slow down and not tailgate people. So, according to the safety department at Stevens, I'm a dangerous and unsafe driver. But come to this company with a system that works like it's supposed to do, I've actually got more good points on me for safe driving than a lot of people in my company. A lot of it's because of the safety classes that I take. You get some points towards you for that. Now, there are some points that can go against you. Now, if you are unsafe and all that, yeah, you can get points against you. But in this company, I have never had any points against me. But while Stevens views me as dangerous and unsafe, because no one would listen to me over their malfunctioning system, I left. And I now know what a good company is like now. Because, I mean, even though it's a mega... I know a lot of people have their thoughts about mega carriers. They don't care about you and all that. Stevens, no, they don't. They don't. They're not interested in hearing you out whenever you have issues with your truck. I actually question a lot of drivers at Stevens that goes through retraining if they truly deserve it. And actually, I feel bad for whoever's taken over my truck after me, or who has taken over it. Because whoever that is going to go through retraining a lot until they either quit or get fired. because of that, because of how they deal with situations, I'm going ahead and burning my bridges. And big fuck you to Stevens. Big fuck you to Steve Aarons. I hate that company because of how I was treated. Now I'm in the company, my new company, even though it is the mega carrier that it is. I had an issue, and they heard me out and took care of it. While Stevens pretty much said, "No, you're unsafe. You're dangerous." So. So I'm actually I'm hoping I've found my company I want to retire out of, and that's one of the things they tell us in orientation. Is they say that they want this to be your last trucking company you come to, which in some ways that can rub off on in a bad way on some people, but ultimately it's my last company, my last trucking company. And I'm hoping that this is the company for me to retire from, and I really am happy with it because they take care of me. They have terminals throughout the country. If and then also I have a lot more freedom in this company compared to Stevens, because I've had an issue with Stevens and with HOS. The problem at Stevens is that there's going to be times when you can't make an appointment time without cutting it down to 1 or 2 hours on your clock. Many times you can't help that, and if it happens to be somewhere where the closest place to park you have to drive more than an hour away, if you're driving for Stevens, it's going to stand as an HOS violation. Actually, anytime you run out of hours, Stevens does not give you a personal conveyance option. It stands as an HOS violation. With this company, I have my own discretion to use personal conveyance or not. I have my own freedom with that. But now with that though, it's something to be careful with, because personal conveyance, I'll tell you what I do to keep myself safe in using personal conveyance. I use it for the strict purpose of finding a place to park. I'm not if it ever comes down to it, if it was to be made into a court case, I can prove that it was for finding a place to park and not to make any progress towards my next destination for picking up or dropping my load. So that is with that. The company really does look at that really hard. They look at every details on if you use personal conveyance. But now at Stevens, you're not allowed to use it if it comes right down to it. Because there was one time I met, because I'm learning at Stevens, they don't tell me nothing. And as it comes down to it, just ain't going to get to use personal conveyance. Because there was one time where I was getting unloaded and was detained for so long that I was out of hours. But I made it with more than 3 hours left on my clock and was still denied the option to use personal conveyance. So, it comes right down to it, at Stevens, you ain't going to get to use personal conveyance. You have to let it stand as an HOS violation. You have no choice in that. And plus, it also does influence how much miles I put in. At this company, I put in a lot of miles. My income is a lot more than at Stevens. Not just I'm paid more per mileage than I was at Stevens, but also I'm more comfortable with cutting my clock closer than at Stevens. So the way the way Stevens deals with HOS is another contributing reason why I quit. So, but that's all I got on that. That's all that comes to my mind for the time being. But until then, be safe out there and don't drink the fish tank cleaner. Thanks.